Hello, everybody. I want to thank you so much for being there today, and more importantly, for what you did. The statue is beautiful. You know, I saw it during the weekend. We had a big PGA tournament with a great champion, and all great champions, actually, but it was a great tournament, and I got to look at it very closely, and it's incredible. And I just want to thank you. I know it was done from love, and I want to thank Mark Burns, a pastor. He's a good pastor. He's a good man. I've known him a long time. He's been with me from the beginning, right from the beginning. Maybe about 2 days later, right? 2 days. But
right, Mr. President.
he was right at the beginning, and I appreciate it, Mark. You're great, and just really a good person. And I want to thank everybody there. I don't know, here there's a good crowd of people, but I want to thank you all, and I won't forget it. And we love you all, and the country's doing great. And Iran is not doing good because of us. They are not doing well at all, and good things are happening. And I just want to really give you my love, and I wish I could be there where we want to make sure everything's going perfect on the war front. I figure you can understand that, but we'll see you all around. I just want to, again, it's everybody is taking pictures of it. Everybody is. My people told me that it's unbelievable. All day long they're taking pictures. They stand up next to it and they have their picture taken. It really came out beautiful. I didn't know what to expect. I just want to thank you all, and we love you all, and God bless America.
God bless you, sir. God bless you. We love you. God bless you, Mr. President. I love you, sir. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
So apparently, this is where American politics is now. A literal golden statue of Donald Trump getting unveiled at Mar-a-Lago like some kind of royal monument from ancient history. And somehow, we're all supposed to pretend this is completely normal behavior. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because let's be honest here, when a politician is standing beside a giant golden version of himself while supporters cheer like it's a religious ceremony, people are going to ask questions. And yet Trump's allies are acting shocked that critics compared this whole thing to idol worship. Seriously? This is the same Donald Trump who has shared images portraying himself as Jesus-like online. The same political movement where every criticism is treated like blasphemy. The same inner circle that talks about him less like a president and more like a chosen figure sent to save the country. Then came Pastor Mark Burns trying to calm the backlash online, and honestly, the response may have made things worse. Because instead of brushing the criticism aside casually, he launched into a full defense explaining why the gold statue was definitely not idol worship. He quoted scripture, talked about false gods, and insisted they worship only Jesus Christ. And that's the part people noticed. When you need multiple Bible verses just to explain why a golden statue of a political leader isn't idol worship, maybe the optics are already a problem. The entire statement felt less like confidence and more like damage control. And look, nobody's saying people can't support a politician. That happens in every democracy. But this goes beyond normal political support. This is celebrity worship mixed with religion, mixed with politics, mixed with loyalty tests, and it's creating a movement where criticism of Trump is treated almost like a personal attack on faith itself. That's why this story exploded online. Because to millions of Americans watching this unfold, it didn't look like patriotism. It looked like a political cult trying desperately to pretend it isn't one. And the irony here is unbelievable. The same people constantly talking about defending Christianity are now defending a massive golden statue of a politician at a luxury resort in Florida. You genuinely cannot make this stuff up. And if that wasn't controversial enough already, this whole situation comes right after Trump started clashing publicly with the Pope himself, which takes this story to an entirely different level.
Jesus told us, "Blessed are the peacemakers. But woe to those who manipulate religion in the very name of God for their own military, economic, or political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth." Yes, my dear sisters and brothers, you who hunger and thirst for justice, who are poor, merciful, meek, and pure of heart, you who have wept. You are the light of the world.
And naturally, Trump couldn't just let the criticism slide. After the backlash started building, Trump responded by saying it was very important that the Pope understands his position. And honestly, that single sentence tells you everything about how Trump operates politically. Because in Trump's world, nobody is ever allowed to question him, not reporters, not experts, not allies, and apparently not even the Pope. What makes this moment so surreal is the timing. At the exact same time people are criticizing the unveiling of a golden Trump statue, Trump is publicly lecturing one of the most influential religious figures on the planet about what he should understand. You genuinely could not script a more on-the-nose political storyline if you tried. And instead of addressing why people felt uncomfortable with the imagery surrounding the statue, the conversation instantly became about defending Trump himself at all costs. That's the pattern. Every controversy surrounding Trump eventually turns into a loyalty test. Either you fully defend him, or you become the enemy. And the more criticism he receives, the more dramatic the reactions from his inner circle become. That's why this story spread so quickly online. Because for many people watching, it no longer feels like ordinary political support. It feels personal, emotional, almost untouchable. And Trump leaning into a public disagreement with the Pope only added fuel to that perception.
Very important that the Pope understands. Very, very important. It'd be nice not to say it. Iran killed 42,000 people that were totally unarmed. They were protesters. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they did, every country, including Italy, where he's stationed, every single country in the world would be in trouble. So we're doing very well with respect to that, having to do with the whole situation on Iran. The blockade is amazing. It's holding up very strong, very powerfully, and I think we're making a lot of progress in that. But the Pope has to understand Iran, very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The world would be in great danger.
And here's the part that makes this whole argument even more unbelievable. Trump keeps insisting that the Pope needs to understand the danger of Iran getting a nuclear weapon, except there was already an international agreement designed to stop exactly that from happening. An agreement that was already working. But Trump tore the deal apart during his presidency, largely because it was tied to Barack Obama's administration. And that's been one of the biggest patterns throughout Trump's political career. If Obama touched it, Trump wanted it gone. It didn't matter whether dismantling it created more instability, more tension, or more costs down the line. The priority was erasing Obama's legacy. And now years later, Trump is acting like he's solving a crisis that became far worse after he helped blow up the original agreement in the first place. That's why critics are calling this entire situation deeply ironic. Because while Trump is publicly lecturing the Pope about global security, many people are looking back and asking a very simple question. Why destroy the deal if the goal was always preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons? And this is where the frustration from reporters and political commentators really started growing. They began pushing back harder on Trump's escalating feud with religious leaders, especially after he positioned himself as morally and strategically superior to basically everyone criticizing him. That's what makes this story bigger than just one disagreement. It's about the constant rewriting of history. Trump tears something down, the consequences explode later, and then he returns acting like he alone can fix the chaos. Meanwhile, his supporters frame every criticism as unfair persecution, even when the contradictions are sitting right in front of everyone. And again, the timing here could not be more politically awkward. You've got a gold statue controversy happening at the same time Trump is arguing with religious figures about morality, leadership, and global peace. The symbolism practically writes itself.
Was the Pope a president? Because there was a group of bishops that did put out a statement saying the Pope isn't merely exercising his opinion, he's preaching the gospel. I mean, what do you say to people that do this?
Well, I want him to preach the gospel. I'm all about the gospel, but I also know that you cannot let a certain country, which is a very mean-spirited country, have a nuclear weapon. If they did, they would use it, and I think they'd use it quickly, and they would kill many millions of people. So, the Pope could disagree with me on that, but certainly we're allowed to have that. I'm all about the gospel. I'm about it as much as anybody can be, but I can't allow, as President of the United States of America, I can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And here's the story. They won't have. They've already agreed not to have. That's good news, and I think the Pope will be very happy.
And then came the moment that people online immediately brought back up. Because Trump keeps saying he's all about the gospel. His supporters repeat it constantly. His allies frame him like some deeply spiritual leader under attack from critics and the media. But there's just one problem. Every time Trump is asked even the most basic question about the Bible, things suddenly get very awkward. And this clip right here is probably the most famous example. Trump was asked a simple question, "What's your favorite Bible verse?" Not a trick question. Not some impossible theological debate. Just one verse that personally means something to him. And instead of giving an answer, Trump immediately started dodging. He said it was very personal. He didn't want to get into specifics. He avoided naming a single verse at all. Now compare that to the image his supporters try to project, this fearless defender of Christianity, this deeply gospel-centered figure, this political warrior chosen to protect religious values. Yet when asked the easiest possible question about Scripture, he suddenly looked completely uncomfortable. That clip has followed Trump around for years because it created a massive credibility problem. People began wondering whether Trump actually connected with the faith language he constantly uses, or whether religion had simply become another political branding tool. And that question matters because Trump's movement leans heavily on religious symbolism. That's why the gold statue controversy hit such a nerve. Because once you combine the statue, the chosen leader rhetoric, the social media imagery, and moments like this Bible interview, critics start seeing a very different picture emerge. Not humility. Not spirituality. But political image-making wrapped in religious language. And the more Trump insists he's all about the gospel, the more people revisit clips like this and ask themselves one question. If faith is truly central to his identity, why does talking about it so often sound forced?
Mention the Bible. You've been talking about how it's your favorite book, and you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favorite Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. When I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like.
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible. The whole Bible is an incredible. I joke very much so. They always hold up the Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time. But I just think the Bible is just something very special.
After all of that, Trump still wants people to believe he's basically the ultimate authority on Christianity. And honestly, the irony is impossible to ignore. Because after struggling to answer the most basic Bible question imaginable, Trump then turns around and starts publicly clashing with the Pope like he's suddenly the final expert on faith, morality, and religion. That's what made this entire moment so bizarre online. People watched a former president who couldn't name a favorite Bible verse now acting like religious leaders need guidance from him. And the sarcasm practically writes itself at that point. You've got critics joking that maybe the Pope should stay in his lane before challenging the unstoppable theological powerhouse known as Donald Trump. Because apparently we've now reached the stage of politics where Trump supporters are defending a golden statue of him while also portraying him as some kind of spiritual authority figure. Again, you genuinely cannot invent this stuff. But then things got even more revealing when Trump was asked whether he'd actually meet with the Pope to smooth over the growing tension. And instead of sounding diplomatic or respectful, Trump basically brushed the idea aside. That answer told people a lot. because most politicians, especially presidents, usually jump at opportunities to appear united with major religious figures. It's politically smart. It signals respect. It lowers tensions. But Trump approached it differently. The vibe was almost like, why would he need to meet the Pope? And that attitude reinforced the exact criticism people were already making about him, that everything ultimately revolves around Trump himself. His image. His authority. His ego. That's why this story kept gaining traction beyond just political circles. To critics, the gold statue wasn't just a weird publicity stunt anymore. It became symbolic of something larger, a movement where loyalty to Trump increasingly overshadows everything else, including the religious values his supporters claim to defend.
Mr. President, would you meet with the Pope to even out your differences with Catholics or Tories?
I don't think it's necessary.
And this is where the contrast became impossible to miss. Because while Trump was brushing off the idea of meeting the Pope, an old Barack Obama clip started resurfacing online, and the difference in tone between the two men could not have been clearer. When Obama was once asked who he'd most like to meet, he immediately mentioned the Pope with genuine admiration and respect. Not because of politics. Not because of headlines. But because he spoke about the Pope as someone who actually lived the values he preached. Someone who helped people directly, stayed grounded, and focused on service rather than personal glorification. Now compare that atmosphere to what's happening around Trump. On one side, you had Obama speaking respectfully about humility and moral leadership. On the other side, you had Trump supporters unveiling a golden statue while Trump himself publicly argued with religious leaders. That comparison alone explains why this story exploded across social media. Because regardless of political affiliation, the imagery surrounding both moments sends two completely different messages about leadership. One feels centered around service. The other feels centered around personality. And whether people like Obama or not, many viewers noticed something important in that resurfaced clip. Obama sounded comfortable admiring someone else. That's where Trump critics say the biggest difference exists. Trump rarely talks about leadership in terms of humility, sacrifice, or moral example. Almost every conversation eventually circles back to himself, his victories, his treatment, his enemies, his importance. Which is exactly why the gold statue became such a powerful symbol to critics. It visually represented the thing they've been arguing about for years, that Trumpism increasingly revolves less around conservative principles and more around personal devotion to one man. And once people started comparing the Obama clip to Trump's reaction toward the Pope, the contrast became politically devastating online.
Is there a person that you most want to meet that you haven't met yet?
I'll be honest with you. Being president, or even being the next president, I can kind of meet everybody, so I've met a lot of folks.
Yeah.
The person who I have not yet met, and that I'm looking forward to meeting, and I hope I get an opportunity sometime in the future, is the new Pope, who is from Chicago and a White Sox fan. I had the pleasure of getting to know Pope Francis pretty well, and he was legit. You know, there's some figures. He's one. The Dalai Lama is another, who they're how you hope they are. They kind of walk the walk.
Yeah.
And my sense of this new Pope is he's cut from that cloth.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who, you know, worked in places, you know, that really needed help, and what wasn't just preaching from a pulpit, but getting his hands dirty trying to help people. So I'm looking forward to talking.
And honestly, a lot of Trump critics believe this entire story goes back to one thing above all else: Barack Obama. Because if you look at some of Trump's biggest political decisions over the years, there's a recurring pattern that people simply can't ignore. Obama attached his name to the Affordable Care Act. Trump tried to dismantle it. Obama helped negotiate the Iran nuclear agreement. Trump ripped it apart. And even now, when Obama praises a religious figure like the Pope, Trump somehow ends up in another public feud connected to that exact person. At some point, people stopped seeing this as coincidence. They started seeing it as obsession. There's even a long-running political theory that Trump's desire to dominate politics was fueled in part by being publicly mocked during the White House Correspondents' Dinner years ago, a moment that many believe deeply embarrassed him. And whether that theory is fully true or not, one thing is undeniable. Trump has spent years trying to position himself as the complete opposite of Obama in almost every possible way. But here's the problem critics keep pointing out. When politics becomes driven by personal grudges and ego battles, ordinary people end up paying the price. Healthcare becomes unstable. International agreements collapse. Global tensions rise. And political decisions start feeling less about helping Americans and more about protecting one man's image. That's why this golden statue controversy resonated far beyond just social media jokes. To critics, the statue symbolized something much deeper, a political culture increasingly centered around loyalty to Trump himself rather than principles, policy, or even religion. And that brings us to the final irony in all of this. Because throughout this entire controversy, Trump's allies kept insisting that Christianity was under attack, while defending a literal golden statue of a political leader. Which is exactly why so many people online started quoting one specific Bible verse again and again. Do not turn to idols or make metal gods for yourselves. That verse spread everywhere after the Mar-a-Lago unveiling because, for critics, the symbolism was simply impossible to ignore. And whether people support Trump or oppose him, this entire episode exposed something important about modern politics. When political loyalty starts looking more like personal devotion, the backlash becomes inevitable. Anyway, let me know what you think about this whole controversy down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and stick around for more political commentary and analysis right here on the channel.